With a view to that end of season feel as well, there's also the relegation places which have been decided, and this again is sort of going to it's already having a knock-on effect, Jan, when there's transfer talk going on, because now you're looking at Ipswich and Leicester and Southampton, and clubs are going to be thinking, well, let's pick over the carcass of that club and see what we can take away from them before they make the drop. With that sort of cynical head on you, is there anyone jumping out at you from any of those clubs who would be a great recruit for the Reds?
I mean, down at Ipswich, everybody's talking about the same player, aren't they?
Yeah.
Liam Delap, who, by all accounts, and this is probably the only way they could get him to come to Ipswich, is that he's got a clause in his contract if they stay in the Premier League, and he's got a clause in his contract should they get relegated. So now they're going down. We believe that the fee is 30 million, which, based on what he's done so far, appears to be cheap. But 18 months ago, 2 years ago, we were talking 50, 80, 100 million for Ferguson down at Brighton, who now can't get a game on loan at West Ham. So it can be a little bit tricky with these young players. Be very, very careful. So when I look at them, the three clubs, Southampton, they got the boy Tyler Diblin. Is he Trevor, though? Is he top level?
Have you heard the number being thrown around for Tyler?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
Like, I mean, I'm not sure if this is 100% official, but you know, I do a lot of transfer stuff, and we've got Dave Davis who's always digging. And the stories that were going around and were being fed to journalists was that they were looking for around approaching nearly 100 million. I mean, that's unjustifiable, isn't it?
Jack Grealish money. I mean. Yeah, but they paid on. But so what you're buying there, Trev, and you're paying over the odds for potential.
To
be fair, I'm looking at that boy, and I would want that boy to be somewhere in between. So I'd want him to leave Southampton to go to West Ham or somebody else before I would be interested.
Yes,
because I'm just not convinced. I see the talent. I've only seen Southampton a couple of times live this season, but I see the talent. You know, he's got very good talent in it, but I'm not sure. So Ipswich, the only one that is still up, Tyler Diblin. And I actually think that Leicester's best is probably the goalkeeper, Matt Hermansen. I think he's a really good goalkeeper. He's a real modern day goalkeeper. Reads the game well, quick off the line, really good feet. His only problem is lack of presence. You know, it's like, is he big enough? You know, I think somebody might take a. So I don't think any of these clubs who all recruited a fair bit in the summer, but I also think all of them recruited with this as a potential of them getting relegated, being ready to go again. So I look at that Ipswich squad and I think they bought a lot of the best players in the championship. They're now going back down with them, and I think they'll come straight back up. No, I wouldn't be. It's strange in it, Trevor, when you look. The 10 biggest net spenders in European football last year, 5 of those clubs are English. And 4 of those big spending clubs are in the bottom 7. You know, Spurs, West Ham, Man United and Ipswich. Them 4 clubs are all in the top 10 in Europe net spenders. And the 5th one, which they were the biggest net spenders in Europe last year, which is Brighton, who a little bit by their own standards is not having a great season. You know, they were shouting a bit for the manager on Saturday at Brentford, and they're not quite 100% in. So, you know, this thing about transfer windows, we got to spend, we got to, you know, I don't know. Is that the way forward? Liverpool didn't spend, you know.
Yeah.
Other clubs didn't spend a lot either because of restrictions. I don't know. You know, but it is though, isn't it? When you think of 4 of the biggest 10 net spenders in Europe and the bottom 7 in the Premier League, West Ham, Spurs, Man United, and Ipswich. That is madness, isn't it?
It is madness, and you can see how people lean into that and talk about how well run Liverpool is by comparison, and you know, stuff like that makes certain fans just really happy and proud, and fair play. I can take a little bit of pride in the fact that the club is well run compared to others, but it doesn't keep me warm at night, you know. That's where I go a bit crazy, like everybody else, when there's the potential of some signings. You mentioned Manchester United there, and it would be remiss of us not to have a quick comment on them and a take from you on what's going on there, because it has been a remarkable season behind the scenes there, in terms of the stuff that's been coming out of the new ownership group. Some PR stories, Jan, you could not make up worse ones. You honestly, some of the stuff that came out, it's bad when Gary Neville's going at you and trying to get a gotcha on you in an interview. It's remarkable stuff. But that would all be just one thing if it wasn't for what's happening on the pitch as well. And, you know, I wonder just what your take on it is, because Amorim, I think, was very, very, very close to Liverpool, and I think was very much considered. It seemed to be that the story was they just couldn't make it work at the time. So he is a highly rated coach, and it was I think, I could be wrong, but it felt like a great get for them at the time, and it just doesn't seem to have worked out. Do you put that down to him being incapable of working with a subpar squad, or him being incapable of getting his message across, or what is it you're seeing there? And there's still the potential for some glory for Man United in this season. They do have a potential European trophy on the horizon, 2 semis against Athletic. It's interesting to see what might happen there. What's your take on them and where they've, the way this season has petered out for them?
I don't really know what to make of it, Trevor. I totally agree that Ruben Amorim has definitely got something as a coach. You know, the job that he did at Braga before he went to Sporting Lisbon, and for Sporting Lisbon, pay up to 10 million euros for a coach from Braga. That means that they felt he was a real deal. And then, of course, he came into Sporting Lisbon and turned things completely around. A lot of people, and again, this is lazy, Trevor, but a lot of people are going, you know, he's playing his 3-4-2-1 system. He's playing that with a group of players who can't play that system. Yeah, okay, they can't play the system. But fuck me, surely they can play football. You know, yeah. It's like, yeah, okay, but you can play football, can't you? So you can still do something. The system might not be ideal suited to you, but you can still play football. You can control the ball. You can pass the ball. You can make it tackle. You clean through. You can score a goal on it. That has nothing to do with the system. So I don't know whether it's just to do with players. But what I do know, Trevor, is that the ownership group, who they don't own the club, do they? The people who's been left with the baby, which is the Ineos group, they've been left with the sporting side of Manchester United to make that work. And I'm led to believe that they've kind of gone, well, okay, this is the summer. This is the summer where we clean up. You know, we're prepared to take big hits. We move players on. We've got to start all over again. To be able to do that, Trevor, and it's always easy to make plans, isn't it? The one thing they need right now, they need time, yeah? How do you buy yourself time? With results. And they're not getting any results. That's their biggest problem, isn't it? So it's all very good saying, we've got a clear plan, wait for the summer, all these players will go. We'll bring young players in, you know, hopefully, as far as they're concerned, with the right profile, isn't it? But in the meantime, they need results. And you've hit the nail on the head, isn't it? Europa League, Athletic Bilbao, and guess where the final is? The final's in Bilbao. What do you think Bilbao feels about that? Oh, this is ours. We ain't missing out on a home final. So it's going to be tricky because they're just not playing well, Trevor. It's already good talking about the game on Sunday against Wolves and they rested a few players and whatever, yeah, but it hides nothing, you know. It hides nothing that, I mean, the trouble they were in against Lyon, I couldn't believe he went through, you know. He playing against 10 men and got himself into trouble, 4-2 down. And then you get these kind of things in football you can't explain because that's what it was. I can't explain what happened at Old Trafford in those last few minutes when he managed to get himself 3 goals, but he got himself through. Now we're in the semi-final. I don't know what to make of it. I really don't. It really is shocking. I think before the start of the season, I had Manchester down 7th or 8th. We briefly talk about where do you think, and I went, they're going to finish 7th or 8th. And even then, people are going, what? I said, yeah, they won't have a great season, but they'll finish 7th or 8th. They haven't had a great season, but they're now going to finish. They can only really, the highest they can finish is 13th. You know, Trevor, what kind of territory are we in here now? It's all very good going back to the 70s when they got relegated, but it was almost like 11 playing field, wasn't it? You know, Man United might have been paying £100 a week, but the other teams were paying £75 a week. You know, now it's different. Manchester United are paying £300 a week, and Brentford are paying £40 a week. You know what I mean? So it's not 11 playing field in terms of that anymore. But they're the clubs that they're competing with. You know, clubs that they're paying 3-4 times as much in wages than those clubs, isn't it? It's crazy, crazy.
It really is. The numbers are staggering, and look, they have that opportunity. As you rightly say, Bilbao, I don't think I'd be too excited about that for them if I was a Man United fan. They've got Bilbao have one of the most sought after talents in Europe as well, in Nico Williams, and I just it's going to be very, very interesting to see, because the season just collapses if that doesn't go their way and the other team has such motivation. To spin it just back to the Reds before we go to look at the next challenge ahead of us, there's a lot of talk at the moment about, you know, potential signings and all the rest of it, and that's because we have this little bonus transfer window which is going to open up for a little while, then it closes, and there's the other one. Okay, and we know that that's because of other factors, but it's making the whole thing seem a bit more alive than it usually does at this time of the year. And stories are starting to emerge. I remember saying to you this day last week, or whenever it was we did the show, that I wouldn't be surprised, Jan, if things happen the way we hope they happen at the weekend and we get the victory we need to win the league. I wouldn't be surprised if stories start to break then wholesale around the Reds. I think everybody's fully expecting Darwin Núñez to be on his bike. I had no idea how close that was until I heard the details of it lately. Like, it was ridiculously close that he was nearly out the door. We were ridiculously close to Victor Osimhen, turns out. Luis Diaz strikes me as a man who'd be quite happy to get on his bike as well and pedal away. One of those left backs, if not both, is going to want to be on their bike because of lack of opportunity, because there will be a signing there, you imagine. It's going to be a very, very interesting time. I think you're looking at a situation where there's going to be a lot of movement at Liverpool. What is the latest you've been hearing? Because there's been contradictory stuff coming out of the club about big summer, small summer, big summer, small summer. And we know how this works. The minute the signings were made, it was like, well, all the money's now gone to the lads, so forget your transfer budget. That seems a little bit daft. I think we're back to the usual thing, Jan. Sales equals purchases. Would that be fair?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And I also think that the club understands that this is the summer now where we build that new super team. You know, now we plan for the next 5 or 6 years, isn't it? So we put bricks into place. And how do you do that? Well, you do that by signing players for the starting 11. You know, it's a massive big thing in terms of Liverpool. The money has to be on the pitch. You know, the big money that you buy has to be on the pitch. We can't have that seated next to the manager on the bench or even in the stands. The big money has to be on the pitch. So I think this is a summer where we buy for the starting 11, whether that's 1, 2, or 3, and then we buy some real potential. So I can't have any other way than this is a big summer, regardless of what happens. But I agree with you, is that some players would move on, and with that money, and Darwin is obviously a big key to that, because they're hoping to get significant money back in for him, which will open the door to do whatever we do. I mean, somebody said the other day they feel that if we get money from Saudi Arabia for Darwin Núñez, that would enable us to bid for Alexander Isak. And the big thing in terms of Alexander Isak is the fact that we might be in a position where we can give him a bigger fee up front, which will be quite attractive to Newcastle, because Newcastle have their own PSR challenges. You know, so it's an interesting one. I'm not here suggesting of what about to sign Isak. I do think if there's a big departure, that might open the door. And I don't know whether winning the Carabao Cup and qualifying for the Champions League with, let's be honest, very little chance of winning it. I'm talking about Newcastle. Whether that's enough for Alexander Isak. If he sees himself, like I do, as one of the top 3, certainly top 5 central strikers in Europe, he must see himself like that. So he must also think, at my age, mid-20s, now's the time, isn't it? And can I get, listen, they've had a couple of great weeks after that Carabao Cup, isn't it? But is that enough when you look at the scenes at Anfield and there'll be somebody in Munich on the last day of May picking up the Champions League or whatever, you know, Trevor, I remember I was in Denmark in 1984 when Liverpool played Roma in the European Cup final. And we played Roma in a pre-season game in 83. So leading up to that season, 83, 84, and we played Roma and we lost 3-1 in a pre-season game. And I was talking to my friends when we come home and there's the Champions League, the final for, well, it's the old, whatever it was called, I forget now what it's called. So, and the lads are going, how do you think the game will go, Liverpool against Roma? I said, I think Roma will win. I played against them. You know, this is us coming back. I played against them in they were absolutely amazing. You know, I mean, what a good team they are. In the end, Liverpool winning it. And I remember sitting there thinking, can you imagine what that would be like? I mean, I'm a professional footballer by then. I'm a professional footballer by then, and I've done a bit. I've been to, we were just about to go to the European Championships and all that, isn't it? But you're thinking, can you imagine that one? I mean, this is another level, isn't it? I'd won a double in Holland and whatever, and I was still an Ajax player. I wasn't even on my way to Liverpool at that time. I mean, Alexander Isak will be exactly the same. He'd be looking and going, we had some great fun up here, you know what I mean? But that's just another level. And can I get that where I am? And that's the brutality of elite sport, isn't it, Trevor? You know, it's like you earn the right to play at that level, isn't it? What more do you want me to do? You know, consistently over the last 18, certainly over the last 18 months, I'll prove it, isn't it? So I don't know whether Champions League and the Carabao Cup will be enough to keep him there. I mean, buy yourself a striker that's going to score your goals, Trevor. Harry Kane, Erling Haaland, and this boy, you know, two of them you can't get. Well, you wouldn't want Harry Kane at his age anyway, and with the fee, Haaland you can't get. It's Alexander Isak. It's a no-brainer. But we've got to probably find the money somewhere.
That's going to be such an interesting thing. I think you're in agreement that that's one of the things that this team needs to address. League champions elect and all as they are, you got to have a number 9 that's scoring goals, surely. And how many of them are there?
I don't know. I don't know what type of number 9 we need, Trevor.
All right.
But we need it. We need a number 9 that works. So we basically had 3 people who played number 9 this season, haven't we? Shota, Nunes, and Diaz. And they've all worked for spells. But none of them have given you the impression of, wow, we cracked it. This is, so what number 9 do we need? I don't know. But I do know that if you buy Alexander Isak, then he would be good enough to be any number 9 you want. So if you want a goal scorer, Isak will take care of that. If you want somebody who can create as well, Isak will take care of that. If you want somebody who can be the linked-up player, a bit like Bobby, Isak can do that, isn't it? And I think that's a great thing with him. Whereas maybe Harry Kane is a bit more. Haaland certainly, he's an out goal scorer, isn't he? So he doesn't bring as much. He doesn't bring as much to the table as Alexander Isak. So I don't quite know. If we don't buy Alexander Isak, we will sign another striker, and then you will go, this is what he does, yeah. And then you'll go, well, okay, this is what we're after. But I just think if you buy Alexander Isak, you swipe the board, he does it all.
Let's just do devil's advocate for a second. Say maybe the amount of money that guy is going to cost might just, maybe Newcastle are pricing him out of a deal. I'm looking at some other alternatives. I'm thinking maybe Alvarez. I'm thinking maybe Victor Osimhen, we mentioned. And I'm thinking maybe Julian Alvarez. And of the 3 of those, to me, Alvarez is the more complete footballer, which means he might be more in the lines of what you're thinking there, someone who can do it all and also get goals. But I don't know if you agree with that. I'd be interested in your take on if Santa Claus came along and said you can have one of these three guys, which one would it be for you?
So I only heard two of them. I didn't hear the name of the third one. So
Osimhen, Alvarez, and Gyökeres.
Oh, okay, yeah. So Gyökeres, again, I have to be honest. I don't know whether he's technically good enough for the Premier League in tight areas, getting his shots away. Osimhen, I think the biggest fear there for Liverpool is the wages. That boy's going to cost you $300,000 a week walking into the building, and I think Liverpool want to avoid that at all costs. And if the third one is, I heard right, is Julian Alvarez, I would drive to Madrid and pick him up. He's another terrific footballer. He would then be a different number 9 because he isn't really that sort of thread in behind. But he's a terrific footballer. He's a great shot from distance, isn't it? So he's another really, really good player, isn't it? I just think with Victor Osimhen is, I don't know, is he 26? That would be some financial layout for Liverpool and whether we want to get involved with that. But of them three, I would say Alvarez all day long. I found it. I always get disappointed, Trevor, even if it's competitors who lose players. I found it amazing that Rafinha was allowed to leave Leeds, and by leaving Leeds, he left the Premier League. And again, the same with Alvarez when he left. And I know he was City, he left in it, but still, I'm disappointed that you lose a talent like that from the Premier League. So yeah, Alvarez is a super footballer. I mean, he looks a bit like McAllister, doesn't he? He looks a really good, tough lad who wants to play football, isn't he? Durability. I mean, the greatest gift a footballer can have is availability, isn't it? And again, that boy always seems to be available.
There was a wild rumor going around because of things that Kevin De Bruyne said that, maybe could we do a year with Kevin De Bruyne? And for me, that's beyond fanciful because I can't see them for exactly the same reason you said. I can't see us, Liverpool's current setup, paying the wages that Kevin De Bruyne would demand and need for a year. But it brings me to a different question. Not do you think we should go for Kevin De Bruyne, but rather, what do you think is going to be the case with him? You've watched a lot of football and you've watched him over the years, as we all have, and it's been a treat to watch that guy. But a lot of people are of the opinion that, it sort of had pretty much gone to the wall for him this season, that he might have hit that point where you just go, the magic is just kind of gone now. Have you any opinion around that?
No, not really. No other than I totally agree with you. I probably saw it in his performance with Belgium before I saw it at Manchester City. But that's probably because I think Belgium have had their golden era and it was hard work for him. And City probably had a better team that could cover better for Kevin De Bruyne. Again, one of these things, it happens to every footballer, Trevor. It can happen at 30, 32, 35. Your legs tend to go. Kevin De Bruyne's problem is that because of the type of player he is, he plays in small areas, and to do that, yes, you need to have a range of passing, but you also need to have that ability to get away from situations, and he doesn't have that anymore. Where does Kevin De Bruyne go? If Kevin De Bruyne stays competitive, and by that I mean we're probably looking at 3 leagues, the Spanish, the Italian, and the Premier League. He could potentially go to PSG, but I couldn't see that with Luis Enrique being the manager. If he stays competitive, he goes to a club with an owner that signs Kevin De Bruyne for vanity. Look what I've given you. Yeah? Look at me. What do you want, Kevin De Bruyne? A bit like Jack Walker, the late Jack Walker back in the day at Blackburn. What do you want? Here's Kevin De Bruyne for you. So that looks like that to me. So I'm hearing more and more rumors about North America, going over to America to play. There's no doubt that there's plenty of levels where Kevin De Bruyne can still rip it up. But a lot of those countries, he has no interest in playing. I couldn't see him going to Holland. I couldn't see him going to Belgium. I couldn't see him wanting to go to Germany because of the energy that's in the German game. Energy, but a little bit of lack of quality, isn't it? So I could see him going to America. I mean, Steven Gerrard's been pretty open about what a great experience it was for him in terms of going over there and still being able to play at a reasonable level, and in terms of the focus and the spotlight on you in a whole different ways. And so that's probably more like it. But Trevor, what a player. Oh, what a player. And you know that there's nothing more beautiful, Trevor, than passing the ball into space and everybody goes, who's he passing to? And there comes somebody, doesn't it? You know what I mean? It just runs into that spot, doesn't he? Wow, that's football, Trevor.
Would he be one of the best you've seen in recent years?
Yeah, no, he is. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that type of play. I mean, our own Xabi Alonso, and you know, I used to enjoy watching Paul Scholes. And here's a name that didn't unfortunately play, although he's still playing. Santi Cazorla. Do you remember when he played for Arsenal?
Of course, yeah.
He had a lot of problems, a lot of injuries, but when he played, pulling strings, little balls, and whatever. I'm a big fan of that type of player. You know, there isn't, for my money, enough of those players in the game. So yeah, I'm a massive fan of Kevin De Bruyne.
Agreed. And also, I think the Saudi thing, I think his head was very much turned by an offer before that fell through. So watch this space. We have Spurs ahead of us, just to move into our last couple of minutes. And Spurs represent the next opportunity for Liverpool to get 3 points, which means the next opportunity for Liverpool to win the league. We play them on Sunday at 4:30, and they play Bodo Glimt in their semi-final of the Europa League on Thursday. And it's probably a little bit fanciful to think that he's going to do a whole lot of squad shake-ups on the back of that. But then they have West Ham on the Sunday, and then Bodo Glimt again. So it's not an easy run for Tottenham at all. I wonder, can he afford to take his eye off the league? He can't really, can he? I mean, they're not exactly precarious, but it's not an impressive place where Tottenham are. I wouldn't be reading too much talk about them playing the kids at the weekend, and that therefore being a handy road for us. What do you think of Spurs as a challenge for us to get over to win this league? And before we get a prediction from you at the end.
So for the game against Forest, he made 5 changes from the last Europa League game against Frankfurt. I think he'll make changes again on Sunday, but his biggest problem is that he's had a lot of injuries all season. Now the injured players are coming back, but they need to come back and find some form. It's all very good having them back, but they need to find form. So I can actually see him, Trevor, going strong for an hour.
Yeah.
The players need to play, you know. And also, you know, as a manager, I can't for my life see how he survives at Tottenham. You know, even if they win the Europa League, I just can't see how he survives. But as a manager, you know, going to Anfield is still something unique, isn't it? You know, so I think he'd want to go there. And it's been a long time since we've seen that Ange Postecoglou football that we saw when he just joined Spurs. And I still think he thinks it's in there somewhere. So it wouldn't surprise me if he goes, you know what, lads? Do you think we can give it a real go here, at least for an hour, get ourselves ready for Bodo Glimt? Because the Bodo Glimt one is a nightmare, isn't it? You know, to play a Norwegian team in the semi-final, second leg in Norway on the AstroTurf pitch, it's a nightmare of a scenario, isn't it? So Spurs have got plenty of players who can hurt you, Trevor. You know, Brennan Johnson on the right, Odom Bear, I thought played quite well on Monday night. Matis Tell, it hasn't really happened for him, but they got Solanke, Richarlison, who's always got a little bit of a bee in the bonnet with Liverpool. So they got some good players. James Maddison, Kulusevski. Kulusevski is another one. He needs to find his form again, isn't it? So you've got to be careful, Trevor. If you're at it, if you're at your absolute best, razor sharp on the first minute, you win 4 or 5-0. You dismantle them. You disencourage them, yeah. But if you offer it a little bit and you allow them in the game and they can play at their tempo, I think it's going to be a tricky game if we allow that.
So it's going to be that last one. Let's be honest.
I think so.
There's very little evidence to the contrary. So let's finish as we usually do, and with your take on how you think that one goes.
Yeah, I think we're going to win because I think that the fans, we don't need the fans to be desperate, you know. But I think the fans are desperate in that they want to win it on Sunday, don't they? because otherwise we take 3,000 to Stamford Bridge and probably win it there, and nobody wants that. So I think that the desperation in that will be, we need to win this, isn't it? So I actually think it could be quite a bit of a game. So I'm going to go Liverpool 3, Spurs 2.
I mean, everyone would take that. And it would be fantastic if we were talking to each other next time out as champions so early in the season. Is there a slight possibility it could be done before Liverpool even take to the field?
No, not what I'm hearing, Trevor. Palace last week against Bournemouth played with 10 men. He wanted to make more changes, I believe, but he didn't want to get a hammering. But this game Wednesday at the Emirates is too close to the semi-final. So I think they'll go really weak. And I also think that it just looks a little bit like a Portman Road for Arsenal, that they've found a little bit of energy, haven't they? The results against Real Madrid have given them a little bit of a freedom, a little bit of a lift in it. So I think it'll be pretty straightforward for Arsenal.
Yeah. Well, as the man said, we're still expecting the Reds to do the business. And for the next time that we speak to you, it should be a very special occasion where we're talking as champions. Let's hope that's the case, at least. Thanks to Jan for another fantastic show. Stretching them, as always, to the limits there with the questions. Massively appreciated. I know you guys who listen and watch appreciate it as well. So, as ever, thanks, my friend. And we will talk to you very soon. Thanks, buddy.
No problem, Trevor.